I'm sure there's someone out here that knows what scotoma is, right? I'm surprised. I didn't know what it was until recently, but scotoma is what it is. Let's see the slide of scotoma up here. That's actually the blind spot that we've all got in our eyes. And the way I used to be way into photography, like when I was like 13 or something like that. So I studied a bunch of this stuff, and so you have the lens in front of your eye, and the image comes through that, and then it hits the back of your eye, and it actually turns upside down. So it's sort of wild because the image that's hitting the back of our eyeball is upside down, and our brain then turns it back around. So I'm seeing you sitting up right side up, but by the time that gets to the back of my eyeball, you're sitting upside down, and then my brain turns that back around, and I see you right side up. Crazy stuff. But like all that brain piece is driven by that little optic nerve, and where that optic nerve actually attaches, there's a spot there where it has to attach, and there aren't any photoreceptors, and so you can't actually see anything in that one spot. So we all actually literally have a blind spot. There's some spot in our vision that we can't see. Now, since we have two eyes, that can handle it pretty well. But if you have one eye closed, there will literally be some spot in your vision, like right around here, that you will not be able to see. Every one of us has that. Now, that's also a common term we often use. That's a blind spot. Like, my wife says, "Hey, can you grab the balsamic from the fridge?" And I walk over there, and I'm like, "Sonny, honey, I think we're out of it. We don't have any." and she'll use the term that she learned as a young child, and she'll say, "If I come over, can I hit you if I come over and find it?" So, and then I'm like, no, it's really, really not here. And then she'll walk over and she'll like take it from like right in front of my face. And has anyone ever had that? Especially husbands. Any husbands? Oh, but everyone's had that. So, anyways, the deal with launches, with marketing, is we all have blind spots. Okay. Now, Frank Kern, good friend of mine, published a product called Mass Control. I've heard it's a very good product. I actually have never looked at it myself. And the reason I haven't looked at it because I think it's somewhat similar to Product Launch Formula, and I don't want to accidentally rip his stuff off. So I literally have never looked at it. I heard it's a great product. I've told people to buy it. I've actually given it to my son to study, but I personally haven't ever looked at it. But when Frank was going to roll that out, Frank has sold many, many millions of dollars of Mass Control, but before he did that, at the beginning, when he was trying to figure out how to sell that stuff, was actually back at the Product Launch Live workshop a couple of years ago. Was the first place it gelled for him, and he talked about it on stage. It was completely impromptu. He got up on stage and talked about it, and people were blown away. A few months later, he launched it. But when he went to launch it, he was struggling with the sales letter. He showed me the sales letter, and it was a very good sales letter. But the lead wasn't there. It just didn't pop. It didn't pop. And I'm like, okay, I see what you need to do. And I took literally, it was probably 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes, and I typed out like 60, 70, 80 words, and it was just a lead. It wasn't the headline. It was like, it's like, here, dude, this is your lead. Send it to him. He's like, holy cow, that's my lead. A month later, he launches the thing. Sells out in about 3.5 seconds. And from what I understand, is later told people that's like he considers the best sales letter ever because it sold the most money in the shortest amount of time. It's like, well, dude, you've got to tell him that I wrote it. Now, I actually didn't write it. I mean, I wrote the lead. Now, the lead to me as a sales letter is critical. But I was able to see it. He couldn't see it. He had that blind spot. Frank's a brilliant, brilliant marketer. Insane, off-the-charts marketer. He couldn't see his lead. Fast forward a little bit of time, Product Launch Formula 2. Like, I got this thing, obviously my butt's on the line. I got to do a good launch for this thing, right? I got to roll this thing out big. I generate hysteria in the pre-launch. People are going insane. No, nothing's ever been mailed like this thing has been mailed. It's, partners are all over it. The list is growing. People are rabid. They're talking about it. And now we're like at about, what is it? We're probably about 12 hours before launch. I'm like, okay, I need a sales letter. I remember Paul Myers. Paul's helped me out like at the last second when I get myself in these pickles without a sales letter. And I did have a sales letter, but it wasn't the home run sales letter I needed. And so I sent him like what I had. And I remember I was like 10 minutes later the phone rings and he's like, "Are you telling me we're 11 hours from when you go live and you've got 9 pages of notes?" And I'm like, "Paul, I really thought I was further along than notes." But so anyways, Frank, I call up Frank, and Frank's like, at dinner or something with his family. And he's like, "Frank, I need some help. This letter's just not happening. I need a lead." It's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to be home in a half hour. I'll see what I can do." 45 minutes later, open up my email, bam, there's an email from Frank, and he's got my entire lead. If you see the sales letter for Product Launch Formula 2.0, you'll see his lead. The first 100 words is basically, he wrote it, and then from there, it just went boom, 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 boom. Now, arguably, I'm pretty good at this launch stuff. Frank's pretty good at this launch stuff. Frank's an incredible copywriter. I do pretty well in the copywriting myself. But I couldn't see it for my launch, and Frank couldn't see it for his. Similar story with Eben Pagan. Eben Pagan did the same thing when I was doing a launch for Membership Site Bootcamp. I was struggling with the sales letter again. Because when I do a sales letter, it can't just be a sales letter. It has to, when people hit that, it has to shock them. It has to set them into a different state. Because when they hit that sales letter normally, their minds go blank. So even though I've gone through this whole pre-launch, when they hit that sales letter, I want to change their state. I want them to be, holy cow, this is completely different from anything I've ever seen before. The formatting might look the same, but this all of a sudden I'm in a different world, and I'm reading this thing. That's what I demand from my launches. Frankly, you don't need to do that. You really don't, because by the time you get to the sales letter, you got them sold for the most part. But for me, in my positioning in this market, I never want to be like anyone else. I want it to be, boom, shock them. So I was doing this Membership Site Bootcamp launch, and the same thing. I demand that from my sales letters. But I'm never happy until the last second when I'm just turning the dials. And so it was the same thing with Membership Site Bootcamp. I couldn't quite get that extra 2%. And so I called up Eben. And Eben is in the middle of his launch for one of his products. He's like, "Oh, dude, I can help you out." It's like, I've been writing copy for the last 48 hours. It doesn't matter if I go another 6 hours on this stuff. So a few hours later, he sends me a bunch of copy, and he's got the hook in the beginning. And then we turn around the same way, and I helped Eben with something where he was just like, "Can't get this." It's that scotoma. We've all got that blind spot. And that's why this business, in one way, is very, very easy. Because you're going to go in with fresh eyes into someone else's launch. And that makes it 100 times easier than working on your own launch.